December 1769. A man freezes in the Kentucky wilderness and realizes he's surrounded. No warning, no time to run. Shawnee warriors close in, close enough to touch. They take everything, his horse, his supplies, 6 months of work, gone in seconds, and then they let him live. No rescue is coming, no law exists out here. Only one message: you don't belong. Most men would leave. He didn't. He stayed. He came back. Again and again. This isn't the legend you've heard. This is the real story of Daniel Boone, the man who refused to turn back. Welcome to Untold America. Stories you think you know, told the way they actually happened. Today, we move past the legend and step into the real life of Daniel Boone, a man shaped by risk, loss, and choices most people would never survive. December 1769. Cold air cuts through the trees. Boone crouches low, then sees them, Shawnee warriors, all around him. No warning, no time to run. They take everything. His horse, his supplies, 6 months of work, gone in seconds. Then they let him live. No rescue is coming. No law exists here. Only one message: you don't belong. Most men would leave. Boone didn't. He stayed. He came back. Again and again. War had just ended. Britain now held a massive stretch of land across North America. Colonists expected reward for years of fighting. They expected land. Instead, they got a line. In 1763, King George III ordered that no one settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. Everything beyond stayed under native control. Clear rule, simple order. Frontiersmen ignored it. Land meant survival. Land meant a way out of debt. Men like Boone did not wait for permission. They moved. Boone was born in 1734 in Pennsylvania, into a large and stubborn family. 11 children, raised in a household that did not bend easily to authority. That attitude stayed with him. His family moved south along rough trails into North Carolina, following a path others had carved through wilderness. Life there demanded work from the start. Boone learned to read and write just enough to get by. The forest taught him the rest. He learned how to track, hunt, and survive. By his early 20s, he became what colonists called a Longhunter. That meant months alone in the wilderness. No help, no second chance. You read the land right or you didn't come back. Boone kept coming back. During the war in 1755, Boone heard something that stayed with him. A man named John Finley described Kentucky. Open land, rich soil, endless game, buffalo in numbers that shook the ground, rivers filled with fish. Boone listened. He didn't forget. Over the next years, he built his skills and his reputation. He also built a family. He married Rebecca Bryan. While Boone disappeared into the wilderness for months at a time, she kept everything running. Farm, children, survival. Records make one thing clear. She held that life together on her own strength. By the 1760s, pressure started to build. Boone hunted well, but he handled money poorly. Debt followed him. Taxes stacked up. Land deals failed. His family needed more than the land he had could give. Kentucky started to look less like a distant idea and more like a solution. One problem stood in the way: the law. Boone ignored it. In the spring of 1769, he gathered a small group and moved west. 6 men, no protection, no support. They passed through the Cumberland Gap, a narrow break in the mountains. On the other side, everything changed. Kentucky was real. Wide bluegrass fields stretched across the land. Soil looked rich and dark. Buffalo moved in massive herds. For a hunter like Boone, it felt endless. But one truth remained. This land was not empty. Shawnee, Cherokee, Chickasaw, and others used it. They hunted there. They lived there. Boone knew that. He went anyway. For months, the expedition worked. They hunted, explored, and learned the land. Then December came. Boone and a companion moved away from camp. Shawnee warriors surrounded them. No fight, No warning, just control. They took everything: horses, weapons, supplies. 6 months of work disappeared in moments. Then they gave a message Boone understood clearly: leave, do not come back. And they let him go. That decision mattered. They could have killed him. They chose not to. Most men would have gone home. Boone didn't. He sent others back. He stayed with one companion and kept moving through the land. He mapped it in his mind: rivers, trails, valleys. Then everything shifted again. His companion died, almost certainly killed. Boone stood alone in a land that had already warned him to leave. Months passed. He moved constantly, never slept in the same place twice, kept fires small, stayed hidden. Every sound meant something. Every silence meant something. One mistake could end everything. He hunted to survive. No help, no backup. At some point, he carved his name into a tree, a simple mark, proof he had been there, proof he existed in that vast silence. Eventually, his brother Squire reached him with supplies. Boone had survived. Not just alive, but sharper, harder, and more certain. He now knew Kentucky better than any other colonist. He had seen its danger. He had felt its pull. Instead of turning away, he made a decision that would shape everything that followed. He would return. Next time, he wouldn't come back alone. Boone returned to North Carolina with something most men never carried out of Kentucky: knowledge, not stories, not rumors. Real ground, real roots, real opportunity. That made him valuable. A man named Richard Henderson saw that value fast. Henderson was not a hunter. He was a businessman, a land speculator with a bold plan. He wanted to buy a massive stretch of land from the Cherokee and build a new colony beyond the mountains. He would call it Transylvania. He would control it himself. Problem was, none of it was legal. The British still banned settlement beyond the Appalachians. Virginia and North Carolina both claimed the same land. Native nations did not agree on who had the right to sell it. War with Britain was already building. Henderson moved forward anyway, and for that plan, he needed one man to lead the way: Daniel Boone. Henderson offered Boone something he had never truly had: stability, land, a chance to fix his constant financial problems. Boone agreed. In March 1775, Boone led around 30 men into the mountains. Their job was simple to describe and brutal to complete. Cut a road through the wilderness. Open a path settlers could follow. That path would become the Wilderness Road. Spring made everything worse. Rain turned ground into mud. Rivers swelled and blocked crossings. The terrain through the Cumberland Gap forced men and pack animals through tight, dangerous passes where one mistake could kill. And they were not alone. The Cherokee were watching. Henderson had made a deal with some Cherokee leaders at Sycamore Shoals, but not all agreed. A leader named Dragging Canoe refused to accept it. He gave a warning that was direct and clear. That land would become dark and bloody. He wasn't speaking in metaphor. On March 24, 1775, that warning turned real. Boone's group camped near a creek. Night fell. Then gunfire cut through the darkness. Cherokee warriors attacked. 2 men died. Captain William Twetty, badly wounded, would not survive. Another man, known only as Sam in the record, also died. Others were hit. Panic spread through the camp as men scattered into the trees. Morning came. Survivors regrouped. Fear sat heavy on everyone there. Some wanted to turn back. That choice made sense. They were deep in hostile territory. They had just taken losses. More attacks could come at any time. Going back meant survival. Boone didn't turn back. He didn't give a speech. He didn't argue at length. He made his intention clear and expected others to follow. Moving forward carried risk. Turning back carried risk too. But the land ahead was the reason they came. Some men left, others stayed. Boone kept going. They pushed through the mountains and reached the Kentucky River. There, they began to build. The settlement took shape fast. Rough cabins, timber walls, a growing stockade. It wasn't much to look at by Eastern standards, but it meant something larger. It marked a claim. This place would be called Boonesborough. In April 1775, Henderson arrived with more settlers and supplies. His plan looked like it might actually work. A private colony rising beyond the mountains, outside British control. But the timing could not have been worse. War had begun. The American Revolution reshaped everything. In the East, it meant battles, politics, and independence. In Kentucky, it meant something far more direct: survival. British forces worked with native nations who wanted to stop the spread of settlers. That alliance made sense. Settlers were taking land. Fast, relentless. Native nations had every reason to resist. For places like Boonesborough, that resistance came as raids. No warning, no patterns you could rely on. Cabins burned at night, livestock vanished, families disappeared. Some captives returned later, some were taken into native communities, some were never seen again. Every season became a count. Who was still alive? Who wasn't? Boone already knew that loss. In 1773, before Boonesborough even existed, his son James had been captured during an attack on a supply group. What followed was brutal. Records describe torture, slow death, close enough that Boone may have heard it. He turned back after that. He went home, but he didn't stay. Less than 2 years later, he returned to Kentucky again. That pattern defined him. Loss did not stop him. It hardened him. Between 1776 and 1782, the Kentucky frontier turned into a constant fight. Small settlements like Boonesborough, Harrodsburg, and Logan's Fort stood isolated, each one surrounded by land that could turn hostile at any moment. Men stood guard through the night. Women worked inside the walls, loading weapons, carrying water, keeping everything running. No one there treated the war as politics. It was survival. And for much of that time, the settlers were losing ground. Boone stayed at the center of it, hunting, defending, leading when needed. Then came the moment that would define his reputation more than anything else. Winter, 1778. Boone led about 30 men to the Blue Licks, a salt source along the Licking River. Salt meant survival. Without it, meat spoiled. Without preserved food, settlements failed. But the work created a problem. It fixed men in one place, and that made them easy to find. A Shawnee war party did exactly that. Over 100 warriors surrounded Boone's group. Boone looked at the situation. 30 men, many not ready for combat, outnumbered heavily. A fight would end one way: death. Boone made a decision. He surrendered. Not just himself, all of them. 27 men laid down their weapons. He told them it was the only way to keep them alive. He was right, but that choice would follow him. The Shawnee took them north into Ohio, into their towns. What happened next was something few expected. Instead of killing Boone, a Shawnee leader named Blackfish chose something else. He adopted him, gave him a new name: Sheltawee, Big Turtle. Boone didn't live as a prisoner. He lived among them, hunted with them, spoke with them, moved within their daily life. From the outside, it looked like acceptance. From the inside, no one knows exactly what Boone felt. But one thing is certain. He watched, he listened, and he learned something that would change everything again. An attack was coming. Boonesborough was the target, and Boone was sitting inside the camp that planned it. Boone now knew something no one else in Kentucky knew. A large attack was coming, not a raid, not a quick strike. A full assault meant to wipe out Boonesborough before more settlers could arrive. And he was sitting inside the camp planning it, living among them, eating with them, speaking their language, trusted as one of their own. That gave him time. It also gave him one chance. On June 16, 1778, Boone made his move. He slipped out at night and ran. No supplies, no backup, no margin for error. What followed pushed the limits of what a man could survive. He moved nearly 160 miles through wilderness in about 4 days. He crossed rivers, avoided pursuit, navigated through land filled with people who would have killed him if they found him. He had little food, almost no rest. He kept moving, driven by one goal: reach Boonesborough. He made it, exhausted, worn down, but alive, and carrying information that meant everything. An attack was coming. Boone didn't wait. He started preparing the settlement at once. Walls needed repair, gaps had to close, supplies had to be secured, water had to be managed. Boonesborough had not been built for a serious siege. Now it had to become one. Weeks passed. Then the attack came. September 7th, 1778. Blackfish arrived outside Boonesborough with a large force. Hundreds of warriors, British-backed fighters among them. Inside the fort, the numbers told the truth. Roughly 50 men able to fight, along with women and older children doing everything else needed to keep the place alive. By any measure, they were outmatched. Blackfish did not attack right away. He sent a message. He wanted to talk. Boone stepped outside the walls under a white flag. He walked out to meet a man who had once called him family. 3 days of negotiation followed. Blackfish offered terms that sounded reasonable on the surface. Surrender. Come north as prisoners, lives spared, no slaughter, no destruction. He spoke with control, with confidence. He knew he had the advantage. Boone listened, and he stalled. He asked for time, said he needed to speak with the settlers, said they would consider the offer. Each hour mattered. Inside the fort, people worked. They strengthened walls, secured positions, prepared for what was coming. Boone used every moment. Then came a strange turn. Blackfish proposed a formal agreement, a handshake to seal the surrender. Boone agreed to meet. Both sides gathered outside. Hands reached out. Then everything broke. The Shawnee tried to seize the settlers. A struggle exploded in seconds. Boone and his men pulled free and ran for the gates. Shots rang out. The siege began. For 9 days, pressure never stopped. Gunfire hit the walls day and night. Warriors pushed at weak points. Then came a new threat. They started digging. A tunnel. The plan was simple. Go under the wall. Collapse it. Break through. Inside the fort, settlers spotted it. Fresh soil gave it away. They worked fast to stop it, flooding the tunnel, collapsing it before it could reach the walls. Inside Boonesborough, the situation tightened. Water stayed limited. Food stayed controlled. Sleep came in short bursts. Every person carried weight. Men fired and held positions. Women loaded weapons, carried supplies, kept everything moving. Some even dressed in men's clothing to make the fort look stronger than it was. That detail is recorded, not legend, not exaggeration. Real people doing what survival demanded. Days dragged on. No breakthrough, no collapse, no surrender. Then, on September 18th, it ended. Blackfish withdrew. No final charge, no dramatic finish, just a pullback. Reasons remain unclear. The tunnel had failed. Attacks had stalled. Supplies and time worked against him. What matters is simple. Boonesborough still stood, and Boone stood inside it. But survival didn't end the pressure on him. It shifted it, because now the question changed. Did Boone save the settlement or nearly lose it? Victory should have settled everything. It didn't. After the siege, suspicion moved in fast. A man named Richard Calloway stepped forward with charges, serious ones. He claimed Boone had surrendered too easily at the Blue Licks, said Boone had spent months with the Shawnee and might have shared information, said his behavior during negotiations looked like betrayal. Those were not small accusations. They pointed straight at treason. Boone faced a court-martial. Men who had stood beside him now judged him, and on paper, the case looked bad. He had surrendered a group of men without a fight. He had lived with the Shawnee as one of them. He had negotiated with the enemy while the fort stood under threat. Put it together, and it raised doubts. But the men judging him had seen more than paper facts. They had seen the siege. They had seen the walls hold. They had seen what Boone's decisions actually produced. He explained his actions. The surrender had saved lives. Living among the Shawnee gave him the warning that saved Boonesborough. The negotiations bought time that allowed the fort to prepare. No long speeches, no dramatics, just results. The court made its decision, not guilty. Then they went further. They promoted him to major. That told you everything. On the frontier, results mattered more than appearances. Boone stayed. He kept working, kept hunting, kept defending. But the war didn't slow down. Raids continued. Losses continued. Every year brought more pressure. In 1780, that pressure hit again. Richard Calloway, the same man who had accused Boone, died during a Shawnee attack near Boonesborough. No closure, no resolution between them. Just another death added to a long list. That was life on the frontier. Nothing wrapped up clean. Boone carried on. He always did. To understand why the fighting never stopped, you have to look at the other side. The Shawnee were not random attackers. They were organized, strategic, fighting for land they had used for generations. They had leadership, structure, a system that balanced war chiefs and civil authority. They adapted fast to changing threats, and they saw clearly what was happening. Settlers kept coming. More roads, more cabins, more land taken piece by piece. From their view, this wasn't expansion. It was loss, and they fought it the only way they could. For Boone and the settlers, that meant constant tension. No safe ground outside the walls. No long peace. Just cycles of building, defending, and rebuilding. Boone's name kept growing. People started to talk about him. Stories spread, some true, some stretched. A man who moved through the wilderness alone. A man who survived capture. A man who stood through siege. The legend started forming, but his real life stayed harder than the stories. Debt still followed him. Success in the wilderness didn't translate into wealth. Land claims turned messy. Paperwork failed. Deals collapsed. He helped open Kentucky. Others made money from it. Boone didn't. That gap would shape the rest of his life. He kept moving west, always searching for a place where he could finally settle, a place where the pressure would ease. It never really did. Years passed. The frontier kept shifting, and Boone kept following it, not chasing fame, not chasing legend, just chasing space, room to live without the weight closing in. But the pattern stayed the same. Where Boone went, others followed, and the land filled again. Each time, Boone kept moving west, chasing the same thing that first pulled him into Kentucky. Space, land wide enough to breathe, far enough from pressure. But that space never lasted. Each time he pushed forward, others followed. Trails turned into roads, cabins turned into towns, land filled fast. The edge moved again, and Boone followed it. He spent years fighting for land he had already earned. Claims failed, papers vanished, courts ruled against him. Men who never stepped into the wilderness gained wealth from it. Boone, who opened the way, struggled to keep even a part of it. He lost thousands of acres, not because he failed in the wild, because he didn't fight for land the way others did. So he moved again. He went west into Spanish territory, into what is now Missouri. There, he finally found a stretch of calm. He received land, took on a local role, lived closer to the life he understood, hunting, farming, leading quietly. For a moment, it held, then it changed again. Control shifted after the Louisiana Purchase. American law replaced Spanish rule. Old problems came back, land claims questioned, ownership challenged. Even there, nothing stayed simple. By then, Boone had aged. He no longer ran through forests for days, but he never stopped moving. He still hunted deep into the woods, still lived by instinct, still relied on the same skills that had carried him through everything before. People started seeking him out. By that time, his name had spread far beyond the frontier. Stories had already turned him into something larger than life, a symbol, the lone explorer, the man who opened the West. But the truth never fit that image cleanly. Boone didn't walk through empty land. He moved through territory already lived in, hunted and defended. He didn't conquer the wilderness. He learned it, respected it, survived inside it. He didn't grow rich from what he helped open. Others did, and every step forward came with cost. Family lost, friends lost, years spent under constant threat. Still, he kept going. That's what defines him. Not legend, not myth, persistence. He crossed lines others feared, returned to places others abandoned, made decisions that carried weight long after the moment passed, and lived with all of it. He died in 1820, not wealthy, not powerful, but remembered, because he never stopped. The legend makes him simple, the truth makes him real. A man caught between expansion and resistance, between survival and consequence, and he kept moving anyway. That is the real story of Daniel Boone. If you want more stories like this, where the myth fades and the truth stands clear, make sure you like the video and subscribe to Untold America, because the stories you think you know are only the beginning.